That is really rad. This is definitely the thing that I feel like everybody's gonna love the most from this particular set. I love kind of like that evil laughing look there. Looking very cocky, sitting in the throne. This is just a very cool looking toy. It's that time of the year again. San Diego Comic-Con is approaching rapidly, and with that, a whole new slew of action figure exclusives. So today, we've got ourselves an early look at this year's Masters of the Universe exclusive from Mattel. However, bit of a twist I didn't see coming, because it's actually part of the Turtles of Grayskull toy line. This is a line that we actually haven't had any new announcements for since last year's San Diego Comic-Con. And with all the figures from those announcements trickling out throughout the year, I think many of us assumed that that was it for this toy line. But recently it was announced that the San Diego Comic-Con exclusive this year would be Skeletor, part of the Turtles of Grayskull line. Very special thanks to Mattel, we have one here in person. So let's dive right in and check it out. All right, so the figure comes in a pretty standard brown Mattel Creations box. You got the little outline image of what's inside, but one of the reasons I wanted to show this specifically is because as soon as I open this box, the mini comic is just kind of sitting on top here, just kind of floating on top. So I wanted to make sure you saw that. Havoc is Afoot is the name of the comic, and then we got some tissue paper in here, which houses the actual item on the inside. Let's get this pulled out of the box. Look at that logo on the top. I love it. It's like an Eternian sewer grate with ooze. That's so cool. And this is what the actual figures box looks like. And this is one of those things, I always talk about this, but Mattel always brings it with their San Diego Comic-Con exclusives where the packaging is concerned. The package design is always top notch on these. This is very cool looking. It's like a stone Skeletor shredder look, but there's like bits of ooze like splattered all over it. It's got this great like octagonal shape to it. Look at this great emblem on the back here. It's like a tower. Look at this. You got like the window here, more ooze pouring out of it, which is very cool. Before we open it up, I want to show the bottom of the box is actually pretty cool because it's got all the credits on here of all the folks who worked on this. There's a special thanks section, which is incredibly cool. I love seeing stuff like this. It's really cool when the people who are behind all of this stuff can actually get some proper credit and shout outs on toy packaging. I think that's fantastic. I'm happy to see that. All right, and now for the grand reveal. We can slide the slipcover up, which, by the way, is like an opening mouth. I don't even know why that's the voice. Here we go. Ooh, look at that. That's pretty cool. Wow. So I think this is only meant to come up just a little ways there, which reveals the figure within. You saw the way that little like drawbridge kind of opened up there, the little tongue. And it reveals our figure on the inside. We've got extra heads there. There's like a throne that he's sitting on the inside. This is very cool. Yeah, this looks like this is meant to only come up about that far on the packaging. Get some light shining in there so you can see it. That is really rad. Very cool packaging. Now the fun part is gonna be to see if we can open this up without damaging it too much. So it does look like the best way to open this up is probably by popping the bottom portion off here. I'm gonna do this without damaging it. Okay, I managed to get this flap off the bottom. It wasn't as easy as I thought because there's a little bit of tape, so you do need to watch for the tape on some of these, but the tape's on the inside, so maybe this wasn't the best way to open it, but I don't know, it just felt like the easiest to get to the figure inside. Maybe it would have been better to figure out how to take this top portion off. This is another thing, like, I love these big exclusive packages for Comic-Con, but I feel like they're so hard to get into sometimes without totally damaging the packaging. But here, look, the figure is just sitting right on the inside here. Let's see if we can just slide this out. Yeah, there we go. It just pulls right out through the bottom. Boom, look at that. Oh, that's pretty cool. Now we can actually see it better too outside of the box, the way they've got it packaged in here. That is pretty cool. So you got this plastic shell here. It does look like we'll have to probably pry this apart. Yeah, there we go. Should be relatively easy to pull him out of this. You do have some rubber bands there that we're gonna have to cut to pull him out of the package. So it might be possible to still place him back in this and slide this back in the box if you wanna like open him and then redisplay him that way. But for now, let's go ahead and get him pulled completely out of here so we can get a really good look at the figure. So before we get to the figure itself, real quick, this is that included mini comic. Havoc is afoot. I'm gonna flip through it here real quick. So spoiler warning, if you don't want to know about this, you might want to skip ahead just a little bit. But this book essentially explains what this figure is here. It kind of shows a scene that picks up after issue number 4, He-Man in a half shell, where Shredder and Hordak were both defeated, and Shredder is like down for the count in this when it looks like Skeletor apparently shows up, and I don't know if there's a mutation or what, but essentially the explanation for this character is that this is a merging of Skeletor and Shredder, like as one character. They have merged together, which is kind of wild and not exactly what I expected this to be here. So this is full on Skella Shredder, as the name implies. And then this story actually ends leading up to the Reptile Wars storyline in these comics. So pretty interesting stuff. And here he is, our Skella Shredder, complete with this amazing throne. I love that this is an accessory here. So why don't we go ahead and we'll move the throne actually out of the way for just a little bit here, because I think we should start by focusing on the actual figure itself. So we're going to remove that accessory from his hand here. We're going to get a good look at the figure. So this is our brand new Skella Shredder, our Skeletor Shredder hybrid. Pretty crazy when you think about it, thinking about two of the most iconic villains from the 80s and early 90s mashed together into one character. It's like two of my all-time favorite villains. And it's really interesting kind of seeing that mashup. I'm not sure this is the way I would envision it, but it's still kind of a neat look for the characters. And there's definitely references to both of them throughout the costume here. Now, the body itself does seem to be pretty standard as far as Masters of the Universe Origins goes. So if you've been collecting that line or Turtles of Grayskull, you know what to expect here. And it does still retain all of the same removable parts. So you can pop the figure apart at the waist, the head, the arms are gonna come out of socket, the hands are gonna pull out of pegs. All of that articulation is going to function exactly as you would expect, and it feels pretty good there. But the overall look is pretty interesting. So you can see he's got this purple tunic, and of course Shredder and Skeletor both rock the purple, right? So the tunic kind of comes over the head, so it sort of mimics both Skeletor's hood and Shredder's cape, and it comes down in the back where it is a soft goods cape. You can see it's black lining on the inside, it's got the purple on the outside, it's got a bit of a shimmer to it, kind of got a like nice little shine there, which is pretty cool. And then you've got the Foot logo on the armor on the front, but you can see it's also outlined with like green bones. So crazy mixture of Skeletor and the Shredder all the way through there. Green on the belt. The green is an interesting choice to me, but I suppose that's supposed to be like a Mutagen reference, right? Because bright green isn't something that I would typically expect to see on either of these characters, although the Turtles of Grayskull Skeletor that we got earlier in the line did have a lot of that bright green on there. And so you can see, I think that's where a lot of that inspiration came from, especially on that armor piece that's over the torso there. It certainly seems to match up with that. This is probably a fun time since I've just brought him in. Like, this is the Turtles of Grayskull regular Skeletor that we got, and then this is the Turtles of Grayskull Shredder that we got. So there, we can look at all three of these figures kind of lined up in a row there. So this plus this equals this. That's pretty crazy stuff. So we got like those spiky Shredder shoulder pads there, which you can see are just extra pieces that are pulled up over the arms. And then the Shredder claws, right, that come off the forearms have a really cool bone effect to them. In fact, they kind of look like skulls here on the front. And then like the teeth coming off of them is what looks like the metal claws there. So again, these are just pulled over the forearms. They're actually pretty easy to remove, and one of the things you're going to notice with these, which happens a lot with the armor pieces that just kind of fit over the forearms, they do rotate a lot. So a lot of the times when you're posing them around, they might slide forward onto the wrist and kind of get a little loose, so you're just going to always need to pull those back up and pull them into place. Like the same thing's happening with the hood right there. He's got a lot of like extra parts that are on there that when you're posing them around, those are going to all move around a little bit. You can see the armor actually folds around his torso here, but doesn't connect. I think that's pretty cool looking, the way the bones wrap around. And also, I gotta point out that just like all the other Turtles of Grayskull figures, you got these two ports on the back, I guess to plug things in, or a turtle shell, or a shield, like we've seen with the other figures in the line, though this figure doesn't come with anything that specifically plugs into those. That's just for your mixing and matching with all the figures between the line here. I love the loincloth with the Shredder helmet on a skull. I think that is pretty cool. And then same with the boots. Now these boots are sculpted like this. So these are like new sculpted boots as far as I know, where you've got like the spiked knee pads there, as well as some spinal bones kind of coming down over the shins. It's a pretty cool look. And the colors are really interesting because like the arms are like this bluish gray. So it's not like the bright blue that you typically see of Skeletor's skin, but then he's got like a black bodysuit there, I guess similar to what you would see Shredder wearing. So really interesting like mishmash of ideas from both of their costumes to make this overall character. Now, we've got to talk about that head sculpt, right? Because you can see that right out of the box, we've got this very cool head sculpt, which is like Shredder's helmets, but with a little bit of a Skeletor twist because the whole face is covered and it's got like this skeletal look to it, but it's still like very almost mechanical looking. It's really interesting. You can see the glowing red eyes underneath there, which are like, they look like they're a bit metallic, so that's kind of cool. But yeah, let's go ahead and pull off this hood here. You can pull this off over the head, there, just like that. Now you can get a closer look at that skull all the way around, that skull helmet. That is pretty cool. Now, this figure actually comes with not one, but two interchangeable heads. So first of all, we have another, I guess another Shredder helmet-like head. And the thing is like the mini comic doesn't really explain any of these, so I don't know if this is supposed to represent something specifically. But let's go and swap this out. So you can easily pop the head off that ball joint, just like any of the other figures in Origins or Turtles of Grayskull. We can swap that one on instead. And so that is similar. You can see it still has a little bit of a skull-like look to it, but it's not quite like a full skull mouth. And then the eyes are bigger on that one, and it's got red on the spikes on top. So that is a cool look as well, but my favorite has got to be this head, because it's like a full-on skull head, full-on Skeletor skull head. Yeah, look at that one. I love this. I love it because he's got like this huge open mouth where it looks like he's smiling or laughing, but it still has like the Shredder like helmet shape at the top done in the same green that matches the costume. The jaw is not articulated. There's no hinge here. You can see it's pliable, so I'm moving the jaw, but it is not articulated. So it basically stays open like this. But I gotta admit, I think that's still very cool looking. I love kind of like that evil laughing look there. And then if we put that cloak back on to complete the look, like honestly, this is my favorite way to display him. I think that's cool. I think it's neat that they gave you the option, right? So you can have like a Shredder, or a Skeletor, or Shredder. Maybe that's what the difference is. Maybe one of these is just supposed to be like a Shredder helmet, but like a Super Shredder helmet. And then you've got like Shredder, and then you've got Skeletor. Maybe that's what's going on there. Or of course, just, you know, invent your own canon, whatever. You don't have to stick to the rules. Display them how you want to. I think that's pretty cool though. I like this. So the one weapon that comes with this figure is a version of the Havoc staff. They actually call this the Havoc staff in the comic. So it's like a mixture of Skeletor's Havoc staff with a bladed weapon. So it's like a Shredder weapon mixed with the Havoc staff. So again, the skull of the Havoc staff is that same bright green. And then you've got like silver on the handles. There's a lot more paint deco than we usually see on the weapons, which is very cool. I like that quite a bit. So now we've got our Skeletor or our Shredder with his Havoc staff bladed weapon. But now we got to talk about this throne. which is awesome. This is definitely the thing that I feel like everybody's gonna love the most from this particular set. This is such a cool toy. So it's like a shredderified version of Skeletor's bone throne, because it still has that bone kind of motif to it, but all of those bones on the back have been replaced with blades. And all of these blades are articulated. Look at this. So you can like fold them down so they're sticking outwards, fold them up, however you want to do that there. So that's neat, but it's got that same kind of feel to it as the bone-shaped throne, or the throne made of bones that we typically see in Snake Mountain, but it's all like metallized now. It's all blades. You could still see it has like a spine-like look to it. It has like the fur for the seat and some actual bone sticking out for the armrests, but it's got that more metal look to it, which is very, very cool. The base is a very hollow plastic. And honestly, when you pick this up, this feels a lot lighter than I was expecting it to. It doesn't feel cheap per se, but that is a really lightweight plastic. I was kind of expecting a little bit more heft there. You can see there are 2 foot pegs in the front for Skeletor to either stand in front of the throne or to put his feet there while he's sitting. And also we've got these 2 banners, which I love that they're soft goods. And one of them's got the Havoc staff on it. The other one's got a foot on it. Interesting though, because throughout this line, they've been using this foot symbol, which is like the 2K3 foot symbol. But here we've got like the classic cartoon foot symbol. I guess both of them count, right? And then at the top, you've got this very cool, like golden Skele-Shredder or Shredder helmet, which is pretty neat looking. You can see there's some articulation there too. Hold that thought, we're gonna come back to that. But first, let's put Skeletor on this throne so you can see what it looks like. Look at that. Look at that. So I got both of the feet plugged in, but I love how we can kind of like even have them slouching, looking very cocky, sitting in the throne. This is just a very cool looking toy and will obviously make for a very cool display piece up on the shelf. So I think that is pretty neat, honestly. Very fun setup. Now, we're not done. There's a few other things I want to show you with the throne here. So first of all, both of these banners are removable. In fact, when you open this out of the box, you will have to attach these banners. These are really tight in those joints, but they do just pop out. They're little peg holes. And so you can see that there's actually like handles here, which is cool because if you want, you probably wouldn't be Skeletor, right? But if you want any of his minions to march around holding his banners, that's an option. You can do that. You can have them walking around with these banners, or if you don't like the banners, you can just pop them off of here as well. There you go. So you can just remove them entirely, and then that way you can just have the throne without the banners on it. Okay, but here's the other thing that's really fun that I instantly had to try, because I noticed that this head up here was articulated. Guess what? It's the same ball joint that is on the figure's heads, which means it's like a bonus secret alternate head for the figure. So we already had those other 3 heads that we looked at, but if you want to, you could put this big giant gold one on the figure as well. Now it is bigger, so I don't know if this is what it was intended for, because it kind of does look like he's got a bobblehead now. Like here, if I bring in like the other Shredder head, you can see how much smaller it is in comparison. But maybe this is like for like if you want to create like a big old monster or super shredder of some sort. It's just cool to know that this is possible. Like this is something that you can do. It's the same size head. Or I guess if you really want to get ruthless, maybe Skeletor can put the heads of his enemies up here on the throne. Actually, yeah, there you go. There you go. Look at that. It fits on there pretty tight. I was a little worried it was loose, but it's not. It fits on there pretty tight. So you can do that too, I guess. If you don't like the big gold head, you can stick any of the other Shredder helmet heads up there. Or, I mean, I guess you could put He-Man's head up there if you want to. But it's cool to know that that ball joint is interchangeable with the figures. I think that's just a fun little bonus. And again, I don't know if that was intended. I have a feeling it must have been, right? I'm just gonna call it a secret hidden feature. Here's another really cool feature that I feel like it took me a little too long to figure out. You see these extra little bone pieces hanging off the side of the seat? Well, those little ball joints on the top looked like they might fit the heads, and it turns out they do. So I think this is meant to be a place to store those helmets. Look at that. So if you want, you can put both of the extra Shredder helmets right there on those little knobs, hanging off the chair as Skeletor sits on the throne, which is a pretty cool little place to make sure that everything has got a spot to be stored on this. I guess if you don't want to put helmets there like on the top, you could just put decapitated heads too, whatever floats your boat. I thought that was pretty cool. All in all, there's a lot going on with this figure. I feel like there's a lot of features here. They obviously included a ton in here with all of those interchangeable heads. You've got the throne, you've got lots of display options. So all of that is really cool and certainly worthy of a convention exclusive. Will this be the end of the Turtles of Grayskull line? I guess I am not entirely sure. Time will tell on that front. So there you go, my friends. There is an early look at the San Diego Comic-Con exclusive Turtles of Grayskull Skeletor. Whew, that's a mouthful. Pretty fun figure overall. I, again, love the packaging, love the presentation, love the included accessories. The throne is a lot of fun. Very special thanks again to Mattel for sending this over so we can get a good look at it outside of the box and kind of explore it, find all those cool action features there. This figure will be going on sale, of course, at the Mattel booth at San Diego Comic-Con, but also on Mattel Creations starting July 24th. So make sure you set your alarm so that you're ready to purchase this if it's something that you are interested in. Now, as we approach San Diego Comic-Con, I've got to say I'm very interested to see what's next. Is this truly the end of Turtles of Grayskull? Perhaps we'll get some announcements at the convention. I assume with everything else going on with the Thundercats crossover, the Origins line proper, Masterverse, and probably a new toy line for the upcoming movie, I'm hoping we get some really good announcements at San Diego Comic-Con. As always, I will be there in person. I'll be checking out the Mattel booth. I'll try to get the scoop on everything that is new at the show, so stay tuned to the channel. Comic-Con coverage is coming up very soon. Until next time, my friends.